Hello, this is the data overview for Etowah High School presented by me, Tina Parmar. I'll be focusing on and highlighting the 2015-2016 ninth grade literature composition milestones. This presentation was created for teachers in the English department as well as members of Etowah High School's leadership team. The purpose of this presentation is to review the demographics and changes of the EHS student population. I'll also highlight the ninth grade literature milestone results and briefly review all subject milestones with a focus on economically disadvantaged students. We'll continue the data analysis to support those students and identify strengths and weaknesses and identify student learning problems and areas of improvement. Here's our student enrollment. You'll see that it's growing with each year. We are in an up and budding suburb community. We ended 2015-2016 with 2,402 students. Here's a breakdown by gender. We always have more male students. Even in 2014-2015, when we had a dip in female students, the males overcompensated for that to still even have a rise in growth in student population. Here's a breakdown by grade level. We always have the most students in ninth grade, and I think that's across the county and across the state actually. So that means that we have the most students taking the ninth grade literature milestones in the school than any other test. Here's the breakdown by race and ethnicity. We have a mostly white population at 72%, and then in our minority population, you'll see that the Hispanic students dominate that, with the Black students coming closely behind. Here's our growth with the breakdown of race and ethnicity over the past few years. Let's look at a smaller scale. So let's take out the total to get a better view. So what's interesting about this is that you'll see that our minority population, specifically Hispanic and Black students, that's been growing steadily every year. In contrast to that, the amount of white students that we've had has been decreasing. So our minority population is growing, and it's mostly pillared by the Hispanic students. Here is the white, Black, Hispanic breakdown. Our district does cut into the corner of Ackworth, and so that's where we pull a lot of our lower SES students. There are many mobile home communities there, and many of our Hispanic students come from that area as well. So here's our percentage of students on free and reduced lunch at Etowah High School. Now, on average, our principal states that this should be about 11% higher than is usually reported yearly. So we're at 23%, and he believes that it should look more like 33%. I find this to be true as well. If you look at the percentage at our feeder middle school, we only have one feeder middle school. They're reporting at 29%, and that I honestly think should be higher as well. We have many feeder elementary schools, and 4 of those elementary schools are Title I or low income, but it's around the time of about middle school and definitely high school where students are embarrassed of the situation and don't report correctly or accurately. Our special ed and gifted population has been steadily dropping over the past 3 years, and our ELL students has remained the same. They've been at a steady 2%. The graduation rate has spiked. It spiked in 2015, but it has gone down in the previous year, 2016. This has been a huge weakness for us, so this is something that we have been working on and will continue to work on. We do have better graduation rates than those of the county and state. Even in our lowest year, 2014, it was still higher than county and state, so that's a strength for us. Here's our graduation rate broken down by race and ethnicity. Now keep in mind our student population, we have 72% white students, and so you'll see that unfortunately that the Hispanic student graduation rate has been decreasing, which is a little concerning. Females have a higher graduation rate than males, even though we have less females in the student body population. Here's a closer look at the graduation rate for economically disadvantaged students. Unfortunately, we don't have data for 2014-2015, but you can see that it has been steadily growing, which is good. And the graduation rate of students with disabilities. Now, attendance isn't too bad for us, but it is a slight weakness, and it is actually something that we've been working on. Over half of the students at our school miss 5 or fewer days, and then we have about 30% of students who miss between 6 to 15 days, which is concerning. Let's look at the race breakdown of this. Now, what's interesting to me here is that Hispanic students, even though they're our second largest race and ethnicity, they are not missing as much school as I thought, and they're missing less school than everyone else. And I think, again, this is where the low SES student population comes in. Many of those students depend on receiving breakfast and lunch at school, and we even offer an after-school snack program, so I think that it's really important that they come to school. Here's our retained rates. We retain more males than females, and so our retained rates overall is kind of a weakness for us at our school. We do retain mostly white students, but again, 72% of our population is white. After that, the next highest race ethnicity being retained is the Hispanic population. We do have a pretty high churn rate. It's higher than that of the county within the last couple of years. And again, we get and lose a lot of our low SES students, specifically those that live in the Ackworth area and in the mobile home communities. And I also think that plays into why our low SES percentage or free and reduced percentage isn't necessarily reported, right? I think students, are moving in and out, and so they're thinking, what's the point of reporting that status if I'm not going to be here for that long? Here's how our CCRPI score compares to state and district over the last 3 years. Teacher demographics, we have majority female teachers. We have 131 total teachers at our school. We have 2 on provisional licenses. 39 teachers have their bachelor's degree, 57 have their master's, 26 teachers with their specialist degree, and 9 teachers with their doctorates. Here's the breakdown for teachers based on race and ethnicity. We have 3 Asian teachers, 3 Black teachers, 8 Hispanic teachers, and the majority of our teachers are white at 117. And so I think that this is kind of the weakness for us. We have a low minority count, and I think often our teachers have difficulty relating to our Hispanic students. Our teachers do have years of experience on average. A teacher would have about 13 years of experience. So what is the end of course exam for ELA? It is the 9th grade literature milestones. It accounts for 20% of the student's final grade. It consists of multiple choice questions, constructed responses, narrative responses, and the extended writing response, which is the essay. It's basically taken the place of the EOCT that students used to take. Here's how students are achieving on the test. Here's the latest scores that we have. We are hoping to grow the exemplary category and push students out of beginning and developing. Most of our students score in the proficient category, actually half of our students, and we tested 608 students last year. So here's the score interpretation. So again, we're trying to get students out of beginner and developing and into distinguished. Proficient is our highest. Here's how our scores compare to, here's how our scores compare to the prior year. So these are the only 2 years that we have tested with the milestones. Both years we had 608 students testing. What's concerning here is that in the first year, we had less students in the beginning level compared to last year where we had more students. Also concerning over here, less students last year scored exemplary than the year prior to that. Here's how we are doing compared to the district and the state. Other schools in the district, you'll see over here, had more students in the exemplary category, which is concerning. They are outperforming us. The milestones has only been out for 2 years, so let's look at the standardized test scores from earlier, the EOCT. It only has 3 achievement levels. We did pretty well in 2012-13 and 13-14. We had a few more students tested each of those years, 611 and then 651. Let's go back to the 9th grade literature milestones. I wanted to look at the race ethnicity breakdown. So you'll see that the Hispanic students are the low SES students. They're scoring pretty high in the lower levels, especially in developing. 95 Hispanic students were tested, and so we do have a large percent of the Hispanic population in the 9th grade. But we had 170 students who tested that were considered low SES. So that's, if we only have 95% of the students who are Hispanic, there are even more students who I think that are coming from the white race/ethnicity who are also feeding into the low SES students. You'll see that these students are more likely, the low SES students are more likely to score in the developing range, which is the gray right here, even though proficient range is where we have most of our students scoring overall. So the low SES students are primarily scoring here and even here. One of the reasons that this is so concerning is if you compare economically disadvantaged students at EHS compared to the district, we are pretty high contributors. I wanted to look at how the economically disadvantaged students did on other tests as well. So overall in milestones, EHS economically disadvantaged students did pretty poorly, especially in physical science and in algebra. And here's how they did at the county level. And here are the economically disadvantaged students, how they scored at the beginning level compared to the county. And again, we did pretty well compared to the county, except for in physical science. So our strengths in the 9th grade lit milestones is that we are improving when it comes to retention rates. The bulk of our students are in the proficient level, and we only have a small amount of students at the beginner level. Our weaknesses, even though our retention rates are improving and that is a strength for us, it's also still a little bit of a weakness for us. We do have some attendance issues. We have lower scores for low SES students, so more of our economically disadvantaged students are scoring at the beginning level and developing level, and less students overall actually are at the exemplary level. And so we also are looking at the fact that our narrative writing scores need to improve. So here are some questions that I hope you guys were thinking about. What surprised you about the data? What inferences and explanations can be made by analyzing the data sets? And what should we do to further assist students that need it? Are we already doing any of those things? I want us to pair up or get into small groups to focus on these questions. What impact is retention and attendance having on our 9th grade lit EOC scores? Is equitable access to the content and technology being provided throughout the school? Can we formulate a plan for providing access to technology for low SES students and content for chronically absent students? How can the English department use current strengths to improve our weaknesses? And how can the English department use local data to improve test results? So our next steps, I think that after we pair and small group discuss, let's come back to the table and discuss as a large group. Come up with a consensus regarding an action plan on how to address and improve weaknesses, determine how to assess and monitor student progress throughout the year prior to the milestones, and then communicate and discuss any additional questions or concerns that you have with me. Thank you for visiting, and please let me know if you have any questions.